So life went on. Along with my regular volunteer work at the children's home, I continued to summarise and produce business books for Power Play, as well as abridge the occasional book for Dove Audio, as a freelancer, of course. I was also very grateful that I was in good health. In fact, I felt really good and was very pleased that I'd lost quite a bit of weight too. That's what no fat, flour or sugar can do for you. Every day I wrote in my gratitude journal, naturally at Oprah's insistence, and each entry included gratitude for my good health. It had been almost a year since I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and although I wasn't in the habit of fondling my breasts, on this particular day, while I was in the shower, I did run my fingers across my right breast, only to discover 2 more lumps that I hadn't noticed before. I immediately called my surgeon, Dr. Hutchinson, and even though he'd been so brutal when he'd done my initial biopsy, he was a lot more respectful after my lymph node surgery. After he'd examined these new lumps in my breast, he arranged another biopsy, or what he called a partial. I wasn't exactly sure what this meant, but I learned after the operation that it was a partial mastectomy. I'd like to have a general anaesthetic for this surgery, I said firmly. Of course, he responded, seeming surprised with a "why wouldn't you" facial expression. Clearly, he had no memory of what he'd put me through a year earlier. The surgery was performed while I was peacefully oblivious, and Dr. Hutchinson said that I'd be able to take off the bandages for a shower in 3 days' time. I'd get the result of the biopsy soon after that. I was very relieved to remove my bandages, but shocked and horrified to see a short length of plastic tubing sticking out of a hole in my breast. Oh my God! I had no idea what it was, and I was in a state of panic. It was Saturday, so I couldn't reach the good doctor at the hospital, but I called the emergency number because this was definitely a serious problem. It took a couple of hours after I'd left an urgent message for Dr. Hutchinson before he returned my call. "Where are you?" I asked. "I'm playing golf." He was probably thinking that it was none of my business, but I wanted to know that he was close enough to the hospital to be able to deal with whatever this was in my breast. But no, he wanted me to take care of it. "Oh, it's just the drain," he told me matter-of-factly. "Just pull it out. It's no big deal." "What? I'm not going to do that." "Oh, okay then," he sighed. "You better come in and see me on Monday and I'll do it." I ditched the shower and re-wrapped the bandages over my alien-looking breast. I was so angry that the doctor had never mentioned anything to me about having a plastic drain in my breast. Neither did any of the surgical nurses. I looked through the literature I'd received after the surgery, and there was nothing in there either. Surely this was something that I absolutely needed to know, especially if I was expected to remove it. There was a hole in my breast, for heaven's sake. And what would happen when the plastic was removed? Wouldn't I bleed? I was very relieved when Monday came, and once again, Dr. H reiterated that it was no big deal. "Well, it's a big deal to me." He shrugged. "Women do it all the time." His attitude was incredibly dismissive, which frustrated me no end. And my complaints that I didn't know about the offending protrusion simply sailed over his head. Then, to add fuel to the fire, a few days later he called to say that the lumps in my breast were malignant. Damn! "You'll probably need a full mastectomy," he told me. "Better go and see your oncologist." I did this the next day. "I know you don't want to do chemotherapy, but you should at least consider radiation," she said in our 15-minute meeting. I remember how kind Dr. Takita, the radiologist, had been when I was first diagnosed, so I made an appointment. He said how sorry he was that the cancer had spread, but said he was very happy that he now had a chance to heal me. So sweet. I have to say that I was overwhelmed with the kindness of my friends, and sometimes people I hardly knew, like a couple of guys at the gym, when they knew of my recent diagnosis. I was inundated with offers to take me for treatments and anything else I needed. I was also flooded with cards, flowers, and lovely gifts. Well, being the independent person that I am, for the next 6 weeks from Monday to Friday, I drove myself to the hospital for my radiation treatments. It was only 10 minutes away from my home, so that was certainly no big deal for me. I heard of a breast cancer support group called the Wellness Community, which held weekly meetings at the hospital, and I decided to check it out. As you can imagine, women were there to share their stories, and most were undergoing chemotherapy and had nothing good to say about it. I thought, thank goodness I decided not to allow this poison into my body. I shared my cancer journey with the group, my alternative methods of healing, but now having to submit to radiation or radiotherapy. And a tall, slim, attractive woman in her 30s put her hand up. This was Teresa. Marie, you need to see another oncologist. I'll give you the name of mine after the meeting. She told me that she thought my oncologist was too flippant. You should get a second opinion, she insisted. Her oncologist was Philomena McAndrew at Cedars-Sinai Hospital in LA. She also happened to be Olivia Newton-John's oncologist. You probably don't care about that, but you know me, I just couldn't resist dropping another famous name again. The meeting with Dr. McAndrew lasted over an hour, and she drew a diagram showing me exactly where the cancer was located. It's an aggressive cancer, she told me. And Marie, if you don't have chemotherapy, you will die. Wow, that was pretty blunt. And she definitely got my attention. But I decided to go for a third opinion and met with Dr. Daniel Lieber at St. John's in Santa Monica. I liked him right away. He was, to use the Yiddish expression, a mensch, a good guy. He spent over an hour with me, and in his lovely, soothing and down-to-earth manner, convinced me to start chemotherapy. Rather than reject what I'd previously perceived as poison, I changed my attitude and chose to embrace the chemo. After all, wasn't it invented to help eliminate cancer? If it had been in frequent use when my grandma Bessie had cancer in the late 40s, she may well have lived beyond the age of 48. I actually had no idea what chemo looked like and imagined being hooked up to some kind of torture chamber. Nonetheless, I decided to make an occasion of it and dressed in my best clothes and jewelry. My friend Connie insisted on coming from Seattle to take me to that first treatment, and I think she was more nervous than me. Nellie, the kind oncology nurse who was from Holland, led me into an area where there were several large, comfortable leather chairs. While Connie sat next to me, Nellie gently administered liquid drugs through a vein in my arm. The first was a clear liquid, which I immediately imagined to be God's light entering my body. Then the red liquid that followed, the chemo drug, adriamycin, I saw as the colour of love. I had no idea I would visualize the treatment in this way, but choosing to literally go with the flow rather than fighting the disease and resisting the cancer in an aggressive manner worked for me. Some of the ladies in the support group said they visualized an army of little men inside their breast attacking the cancer cells. Others saw Pac-Man-like creatures gobbling up the cells. And someone else saw sharks. Ugh, I just couldn't go that route. I saw white daisies and butterflies inside my breast. However, this harmonious scene did not prevent me from experiencing horrendous sickness after my first treatment. It felt like the worst case of seasickness ever. But interestingly, after that, even though I sometimes had slight nausea and certainly tiredness, I did not suffer the severe side effects of chemotherapy as so many women did. I like to think it had a lot to do with my attitude. I feel that the previous year of alternative therapy also made a difference, and that I'd prepared my body to receive the cancer drugs. Next time, my furry angel and Liberty Heights. Thanks again for listening.